For November 20th, we solved our cache problems. For now. Sorta. Hello, fellas of Blind Pix Fanatics. Welcome to your Devember devlog update for November 20th, which is a Sunday, a day in which we spent a lot of time decorating some cookies. Cutout cookies in the shapes of trees and bells and snowmen and stockings. A lot of icing, a lot of sprinkles, fair amount to clean up. It was a good time. We're going to have fun sharing these with people in a safe manner, of course. I did spend some time working on November. I, of course, only spent a little bit over an hour. This was a lot of researchy type stuff, and as we can see here, I actually only did 2 commits. Now, what I was doing today was sort of a follow on to what I was doing yesterday. Didn't really want to do this, but it was really bothering me, the whole idea that I couldn't pickle a Dottie and then unpickle it. So I spent some time trying to figure out why exactly that was happening and if there was a way to fix it. And after looking at it for a fair bit, I decided I don't entirely know why it happens. I mean, I do know why it happens, but also I don't know why it happens because of the way that the Dottie library works to make itself appear to be an actual dictionary while still having other capabilities behind the scenes. But it turns out that it doesn't really matter because just as a test, I thought, well, if encrypting a regular dictionary using Pickle was smaller and faster than using JSON, in a pinch, because CPU being what it is, it takes a very marginal amount of time to take a Dottie thing and convert it into JSON and then convert the JSON back to a regular dictionary. Just as an expedient, just a test. I wouldn't want to do that generally speaking. If I could encrypt that and load it back in, then that would be a smaller dictionary. It would pickle properly. We can always load it back the same roundabout way by getting the dictionary out of the pickle jar, such as it is, converting it into JSON, and then converting it from the JSON string into a Dottie with the conversion routines that we already have, which 100% worked after all was said and done, but did not have really any speed benefit whatsoever. So I really think that the ultimate solution to this is to just use a better encryption library, which is, as I said yesterday, something that's definitely on the horizon, something that I want to do and will be done because I do think these things need to be encrypted and it needs to be safe. But it doesn't need to be this slow, particularly during development purposes. So the 2 changes that I ended up making here for this day in November, just to keep us rolling, are thus. First of all, new cache control settings. If I scroll this up, you can see those right here. I'll even turn the sidebar off so we get more space. There's 2 items here: cache downloaded data and encrypt cache. Cache downloaded data can be true or false. Defaults to true. This is what tells the thing that it should actually save the data that it's downloading into a file and read it back again later. And that defaults to true because it seems like that's a good idea for speed purposes, if nothing else. If we can get a little bit of speed out of this, not doing encryption, as we'll see in just a moment, then it actually makes circular testing of small features a lot easier. And if you've watched any of the live streams here on the channel, you'll know that if you're sort of tweaking up the display or you have a small bug and need to go back again, it really kills your iteration time to wait for all of the requests to pull down again, which was part of the reason why I wanted to cache this in the first place. So this defaults to true, but if you wanted to, you could turn it off, which would allow you to test things more thoroughly. In a variety of different ways if you wanted to do something with the data requests. The second one, encrypt cache, can be true or false. True is the classic setting for this before this setting actually existed. And false tells it to just persist the data as JSON and load it back. So basically it turns off the part where it actually encrypts and decrypts the data, such as it is. This particular commit adds those 2 settings and adds them to the magic helper here for YTE settings so that we can call into this thing. And that is all these 2 things actually do. In the second commit, this is where this is actually implemented. And incidentally, if you remember a devlog from a couple of days ago, I fixed a bug where YouTube setting here, the YTE setting, wasn't being, and it was initialized after the network class was actually initialized. There is actually code in this network class that uses this, but it doesn't use it in the constructor. It uses it a little bit later on when the first request is actually made and it needs to pull in authorization information. So I'm glad that I fixed that because this was sort of a real eye opener. I thought, oh, I hope I don't have any sort of weird circular issue pulling this setting in, this routine in for settings. Turns out, no. So we can see here, very simple change. If we're not supposed to cache, don't do anything. Just return none. Just always pretend that there's absolutely no file there. And then instead of always caching the data, not caching the data, decrypting the data into cache data. Pardon me. We gather the red data. If we're supposed to encrypt it, we do. Otherwise, we just decode it from bytes because we are reading it as binary, and then tell the JSON loader to load it, with the object hook being the magic of the thing we worked out in the live stream the other day that makes all these sub objects Dotty objects when they came out. And similarly for saving the cache data, if we're not supposed to save it, do nothing. Otherwise, get the JSON data by encoding it, or to get the data from the cache data by encoding it into JSON. Here, the class Dotty encoder is something that's going to take Dotty things and return the dictionary that they're necessary, or that they wrap, I should say, because the JSON encoder otherwise gets very angry that it doesn't know what a Dotty dictionary is. And then if we're supposed to encrypt it, we encrypt the thing. Otherwise, we just encode it into bytes and write it out. So very simple changes with these settings. This way, we're getting caching. It's not safe, but I'm still doing testing locally, so that is fine. We're going to fix that encryption code a little bit later, of course, but this does make things blazingly fast. So that's going to do it for this devlog. I think we're going to consider this caching stuff done and move on to other features. Now, there was one other thing that I was actually going to do here, which was make the saved cache data not save every time, because sometimes you make a request and then immediately make another request and it's flushing it out to disk. And it was taking a while, seemed like a silly thing to do. I played with that a little bit today as well. I didn't mention it earlier. It was one of the first things I thought of. Maybe we'll just fiddle this bit, and decided I don't want to get into that right now, because in order to delay that and debounce it, we need to use something like set timeout or set timeout async to get the call to be scheduled for a little bit in the future, or write more glue code into the network class. And the set timeout method, not safe because it needs to happen inside of the network code itself in between requests. You don't want it trying to persist stuff to disk while something else is fiddling with it. So I decided I'm not going to worry about that for right now. We'll leave it the way it is. And when the good encryption code comes in, when that eventually happens, which is probably not going to be in November because I don't want to fiddle with binary dependencies right now. That could be a whole November in and of itself. Revisit this and see if we could make it a little bit better. But that's all I got for this one. Not a lot happened. Remember, we're doing live streams on Tuesday and Thursday, assuming Thursday is not Christmas. I don't think it is. Don't remember it being so on the calendar. You can subscribe using the button down below, and follow me on Twitter if you'd like to jump into the live stream, say hi, ask questions, tell me I did something stupid in my code, or just hang out. Hanging out's cool. We haven't been doing enough of that lately, internet. You and we haven't been hanging out enough lately. So come hang out. Until then, this is Odette Nerd asking you to please have a sublime day.